Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 o'clock Eastern time is going to be our it's going to be our standard time. Mattress cam. Oh, you guys want a quick taste of the mattress cam? All right, really quick before we bring Lee on here, just so you get to see it real quick. Boom! Mattress cam 2022. Look at the mattress and all the lights glaring and all of the madness. There you go. Got a little taste of mattress cam for everybody. Thank you for paying attention. Mattress cam. That was for Alex, I believe, all the way out in Deutschland. Good to see you. Thanks for everybody watching all over the world. Another exciting episode of Mattress Cam, ladies and gentlemen. Mattress Cam. I should really get a sponsor. We should get a mattresses or a Casper mattress or something like that. I should get a new mattress out of this deal. I don't think anyone's ever going to sponsor this show for anything at all. And the only one who's any company that'll ever want to sponsor us would be, there's no one that would sponsor us. Let's bring Leon to discuss this. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, one of the most censored comedians in America. We are the dynamic duo of censored comedians. It's Lee Camp.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good, buddy. Welcome, Lee Camp, to Government Secrets, episode 89. One away from 90. So today's not going to be that special. Next week's going to be amazing, but this week's episode.
Normally, you only hear requests for mattress cam on fans only, but this was a different style. Different style of mattress.
There's nothing sexy about my mattress cam at all. There's just a mattress leaning up against the wall in a small room. Literally, I look like I'm, like I'm in some sort of bunker, and I've been living here for the last 2 years, and I haven't seen the sun. So.
Yeah, and that mic you were using at the beginning sounded like it too.
Yeah, I always have to.
Sounded like someone had bugged your apartment.
And I was just talking. I know you're listening, and I say, who do you think we could ever get as a sponsor for this show, Lee? Realistically.
I mean, I think you're right. I think it'd have to be a mattress company, but it would have to be like a mattress company that, folds up. It's like for when you have a mistress in the garage and you need to fold up the mattress real quick. It's like it's a mattress. It's a mattress that disappears at the drop of a hat.
Wait a minute.
It goes up against the wall.
Okay.
Some sort of like what's a Murphy bed? It's like an emergency Murphy bed situation.
I like. We're not just going to breeze past. You say this like mistress in the garage, like everyone has one of these. Like,
hold on, you don't have a mistress in the garage?
What? Is this
I thought you were someone who had lived. All right. I thought you'd enjoyed this life.
What world am I missing? Everyone, of course, has a mistress in the garage. This is your Murphy bed mistress. This is your Mistress Murphy bed. This is what.
Sorry, would you have related better if I said mistress in the Batcave? Would that have?
First of all, we don't allow women into the Batcave, despite what the Michael Keaton Batman movie did in the 80s, which was a crime. I could go on and on about bringing Vicky Vale into the Batcave. Like that would never happen in 1,000 years.
I just read some article. I was huge into those Batman movies, but I was like in third grade or something. So I think I can get forgiven. But I just read an article about how that movie was like the least canon movie ever because they're just like, there's like, hey, here's Vicky Vale, here's a Batcave.
Yes, Vicky Vale's in the Batcave. We're just going to abandon all of this stuff from the comics and just kind of make our own little thing. Oh, that movie, I could go on and on about how much.
Penguin is just a misunderstood dude.
Well, the dumb thing was they made the Joker killed Bruce Wayne's parents. Like he needed some sort of revenge plot which I'm sorry, I'm going off on a Batman rant here, but this is like the whole point of the Batman was it was just a random crime that they gunned down his parents.
Right. So he goes into fighting crime. Right.
Because crime's bad and the economic reasons that cause, because again, the first Batman was written, it was the Depression, right? It was written in, so it was capitalism caused this, and you don't need. You killed my parents. It was the dumbest. God, I can't even. So
yeah, and then and if it had been Joker who killed his parents, then he would just be all about getting Joker, whereas instead he was about fighting crime.
right.
Yeah.
And the causes of crime and anyway, I'm sorry. I could, this is really a hot point.
I know. I shouldn't have brought it up. It's my bad. It's my fault. If you do not bring up Batman errors in movies, if you don't have a 3-hour podcast, we only have a 1-hour podcast. So.
Literally, I'm going to have to put the mattress down to rest before I go into my 3-hour Batman diatribe. Yeah. And so it's been an exciting 2 weeks. We haven't done the show in 2 weeks. Lee, anything big happen? Has anything happened that's significant at all?
I believe the Supreme Court ruled it's okay to slap a woman on the ass if she's dressed like that.
Right.
I believe that was the Supreme Court. Yeah.
It's how many liberals blaming like third party voter, like how much of that have you had? It's like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm back into, I just had a guy, and again, it's always some like, you've brought this up before, and when a comedian like comes at you online, it's usually some like double-digit IQ, or I've noticed it's always like a comic that's not successful. Like that is like their career is not that great anymore. And they're just like, hey, Graham, way to go. This guy brought up the fact he blamed the Iraq war on Ralph Nader.
Yeah. I mean, Ralph Nader did lead the charge. Like he was at the front with the fucking automatic rifle across his chest. That was Nader. So the guy's got a point.
Right. And it's like at every point I kept going and everything I kept saying, and I stayed very level headed. I was like, well, the Democrats have done this, this, and this. Why don't you hold them accountable? And then he's like, oh, you just want to say, I told you so. Like, no, I'm what?
And again, I'm saying you're a hypocrite, dude.
I'm saying you're a complete hypocrite. He goes, I said, I told you so. Well, you just, it's staggering to read. And then he just made some, why don't you just, keep going right wing like your buddy Jimmy Dore or something. I was like, wow, I've been on a show once in a year only to debate him. So once again, you don't know what you're talking about. That's fine. And every time I brought up I brought up the war in Iraq, I said, Hillary voted for it. Joe Biden voted for that war. And then he's like, oh, so we're just going to play I told you so? Yeah, I'm saying I told you to stop voting for the Democratic Party. Yes, I have told you so. Yes, stop voting for them.
I love the idea of like, man, you're so fucking wrong. And you're like, no, here's how I'm not wrong. And then he's like, oh, you just want to do I told you so. Yeah, that's what a debate is.
Yeah, I won the debate.
So.
I just told you so.
It's going, I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah, and I've proven you wrong. So you've lost the debate. You lost because your facts are, and this is the thing when I debate these people, I know I used to be one of these guys who watched a little MSNBC and CNN and watched Bill Maher and listened to NPR and read The Economist or whatever and thought I was informed and thought I don't like the Democratic Party. I'm not huge fans of them, but at least they're better than the Republicans. I used to think that way. And so I know how these people, and they're all fucking Gen X liberals. Like my generation is the dumbest. Like, I'm sorry. Everyone's like, oh, millennials, Gen Z. What? They're born into a hellscape. When I was in my 20s, unfortunately, we were not getting over 100 Starbucks unionized. We were watching The Simpsons and having Nirvana t-shirts, and maybe some of us had a Public Enemy CD and we thought we were down. But like, let's be clear here. I'm sorry, Gen X. I am telling you, we haven't done much as a whole, as a generation. I did a lot.
It's garbage, but
yeah,
a lot. There's a significant chunk of the millennial group that's garbage as well. It's it's just American culture is producing garbage.
It does. It produces it. We're meant to be consumers, and this constant the college educated liberal that still defends the Democratic Party and blames everything on third party voters and the Republicans and won't hold the Democratic Party accountable for anything. I call them, they're the flat earthers of the left. Like they're they're
Well, they're not. Don't call them of the left, because I find that insulting.
well, that's the thing. Everyone points it out. I say they think they're on the left. That's
Right,
the thing.
right,
They
right,
consider themselves on the left, and
right.
they're not. They're like center right. I mean, at best, they think they're the left, and they refuse to acknowledge any of this stuff. It's. I mean, I was like, Obama dropped more bombs than Bush.
Yeah.
You're mad at the Iraq war, but Obama was worse. Oh, are you just going to play I told you so? Yeah, that's why I don't vote for the Democratic Party. I was like, that's it's staggering. And they think they're so much smarter. And I'm like, how are you any different than the red state voter that says Trump never lies? He's never lied. Like, you sound just as crazy when you won't acknowledge all the awful stuff the Democratic Party's done. I don't understand it. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're all pathetic. I mean, I've stopped reading most things that people post.
It's really, and it's, I don't read some people. They usually come on to my, like, I post something. And here's what I posted, this thing that was at a Roe v. Wade protest a couple days ago, of mainly young people going, Democrats, we're done with you. We see right through you, was the something to that effect. Basically, people saying, we know Democrats, you've helped Roe v. Wade get taken down. You didn't codify it. I posted another thing of two young women saying Democrats could have codified this a long time ago, and they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing, which I covered on my live stream, is that I didn't come up with this. It's a great point put forward by others, is that Biden right now, with executive actions, could put abortion clinics on federal land in red states. They could have like a toll-free number you could call, and the federal government could send you abortion pills right now. They could have a fund, and obviously the federal government has trillions of dollars. They could pay to bus these people to a state where they can get the care they need. So all of that could be done today, and they're not going to do any of that shit. They give a fuck.
No. And then they send out donation emails.
Yeah, but they fundraise. Yeah.
It's a fundraise. And this is, guess what, Lee? I don't know if you knew this. This is our most important election ever. Like, have you heard that yet? Like, it's always the most important next election ever.
I heard it was second most important to the Taft. I think it was Taft's second term.
Taft's second term. Right. That we talk about that one a lot. Everyone's big Taft.
But this is almost the most important election. Yeah.
Taft's second term. Oh, fantastic. All right, buddy. Whose segment do we want to do first? We got a couple of fun ones for you, folks.
We do. I can go first if you want.
I think Lee Camp should do segment number 1 of episode 89 of Government Secrets. If you love America, this show will break your heart. Lee Camp.
So, as I hope the longtime listeners of this show know, America, the United States, is the land of the free. But for some people who are political prisoners in this country, they're not as free. They've been locked up or killed or what have you.
Right.
So an example of that is the person I'll be covering in today's segment, Mumia Abu-Jamal. Now, hopefully some of you heard his name. He is one of the best known American political prisoners to date, currently still imprisoned. I figured I'd give the some of the we'll start with the Wikipedia, but then we'll get into the details that Wikipedia would never give you. So
both of our stories today, folks, little spoiler alert, are going to do that. We're going to have what Wikipedia says, and then we're going to go into the truth. we're going to
go into the deeper truth. Exactly.
Yeah. Wikipedia is like this pamphlet that's just like, this gives you like, here's a couple things.
Here are all the wrongs America has done, and it's a little little pamphlet that says, like, here's what you need to know. 3 pages filled with cartoons.
Yeah, and that's always, and everyone is just written like a big mix-up, like it wasn't like a deliberate evil act. It was always like, oh, Gilligan got the boat wrong or whatever. And so
the Gulf of Tonkin was caused because someone sneezed on the radar screen. Yeah.
He was looking at the map upside down. That's how the Gulf of Tonkin happened. It was just a big snafu.
So Mumia Abu-Jamal is an American political activist and journalist who was convicted of murder and sentenced to death in 1982 for the 1981 murder of Philadelphia police officer Daniel Faulkner. He became widely known while on death row for his writings and commentary on the criminal justice system. He's had numerous appeals, and his death penalty was overturned by a federal court in 2011. He got switched to life imprisonment instead of death row. Beginning at the age of 14 in 1968, Abu-Jamal became involved in the Black Panther Party. And so for a lot of, largely racist people who are like, he's a fucking thug and he murdered a cop, they love to say Black Panther thug. The dude was in the Black Panthers from age 14 to age 16. He left the Black Panthers at age 16. After leading, and we've done multiple episodes on how the Black Panthers did a ton of good and were not just what the American propaganda, U.S. government propaganda would like for you to believe about them. But anyway, after leaving Black Panthers, he completed high school and became a radio reporter. He eventually served as president of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists until 1980. He supported the Philadelphia organization MOVE and covered the 1978 confrontation in which one police officer was killed. The MOVE 9 were the members who were arrested. And many may recall that we did an episode on the MOVE bombing. And this will show you what Philadelphia thought about MOVE, and therefore a journalist who's covering MOVE positively. That Philadelphia bombed, aerial bombardment of the MOVE building, the MOVE home, killing multiple people, and then arresting those who survived. And that happened after Mumia was already locked up. But that shows you what Philadelphia's view of MOVE was.
Yeah, they bombed it and locked up a journalist, a Black Panther activist, basically.
Yeah. So here are the details that Wikipedia does not as much get into. And this is coming from thefeministwire.com. They wrote a good article called 10 Facts About Mumia Abu-Jamal. Early in the morning of December 9th, 1981, while driving his cab. So at this time, he's a well-known journalist. And I don't know how well-known, but fairly well-known. As I mentioned, he was president of the Philadelphia Black Journalists Association. So somewhat well-known. He was even working and doing reports occasionally for NPR. But as you and I might know, as a comedian journalist or what the fuck you want to call us, doesn't always pay the bills. So he was moonlighting as a cab driver. He's like driving the midnight shift as a cab driver. And he stops his car when he sees that his brother is being arrested by a police officer. Out of the encounter, and there's, conflicting stories on what happened, obviously. Out of the encounter, the police officer, Daniel Faulkner, is shot and killed by somebody. Mumia was found semi-conscious, sitting nearby with a bullet from Faulkner's gun in his stomach. Mumia's gun, which he acquired because he had recently been held up while driving his cab, was allegedly found nearby. Eventually, he was tried, convicted of murder in the first degree, and put on fast-trained execution in the absence of hard evidence. The police failed to conduct the routine paraffin test on Mumia's hands to determine if he had fired the gun. And on top of that, a critical fragment of the bullet retrieved from Officer Faulkner's body was somehow lost. Therefore, there could not be a decisive match to Mumia's gun.
Darn it. But we'll just call him guilty anyway.
But yeah, imagine, what are the odds they actually just lose? If he actually did the shooting, did the killing, what are the odds they actually lose the bullet that would indict him?
Yeah, that's weird. One hard piece of evidence, they lost it.
You lose the bullet when you don't want people to see where the bullet came from.
Yeah.
So,
it's odd.
You know how those crime scenes are. They're like, here, Ned, why don't you take this home? Here's the bullet. Just put that in your pants pocket and just take that home. Just keep that safe. Just wherever. Just put it in your change jar in your dresser and just keep that safe for us for a little while.
Well, a lot of times too, they'll see just like a pizza delivery guy, and he'll walk by and they'll go, "Hey, can you take this evidence down to the precinct?" They'll just give it to somebody else, and then
they will often hand it off.
It's very understandable why they could lose it.
So nowadays they'll call like a DoorDash guy. They'll just get one of them.
Yes.
To do it. Yeah.
Grubhub's pretty good with that too. Like,
so on the night that Officer Faulkner was shot, there were actually 4 persons at the crime scene. It wasn't just him, his brother, and the officer. And 4 witnesses have reported seeing a 4th person fleeing the crime scene. But the presence at the crime scene of the 4th person was concealed at the trial by the prosecutor, Joe McGill, and the trial judge, Albert Sabo. And in fact, it was clear they knew of that 4th person because the passenger in the Volkswagen, which Officer Faulkner had stopped, was acknowledged by prosecutor Joe McGill in another trial that was happening concurrently, meaning they clearly knew about this 4th guy, but they literally didn't tell anyone in the trial and helped conceal it.
Nice.
So this key exculpatory evidence that there was another person in the crime scene was hidden from the defense and the jury. And of course, why hide it if it's not crucial to the case? Like,
right.
if you had thought you had if Mumia had actually killed him and you had thought, oh, it's fucking proven, we don't need to worry about it, why hide that there was another guy there? You only hide it if the other guy is important and upends your case.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if they had clear evidence of like, oh, they had the bullet, they had eyewitness saying Mumia shot the cop, everything would have been up there and they would have said, we got hard evidence, he did this. But it's so cops. And I'm sure the FBI was somewhere in there. I mean, I know they were involved in the bombing when we covered that.
Actually, there is a mention of the FBI coming up later.
I'm sure it's a good one. I'm sure it's a positive mention.
Oh yeah,
no,
it was positive. They actually went and found that bullet fragment, which got Mumia out of prison. He's free now. So
we got to free this innocent black man. That was the FBI's like mantra. Like that's what they got. That's what they were all about.
So journalist Patrick O'Connor argues convincingly in his book about the case that the 4th person, Kenneth Freeman, is the actual one that killed Officer Faulkner. In 1979, the Department of Justice, which has never done any wrong, but the Department of Justice filed an unprecedented lawsuit against Philadelphia's mayor and 21 top city police officials. Its conclusion that the police department's behavior, which included, this is one of these rare times that the Justice Department did something legit. The conclusion of the report, of the lawsuit, was that the police department's behavior, not in this case, not in the Mumia case, but just elsewhere, which included shooting nonviolent suspects, abusing handcuffed prisoners, and tampering with evidence, quote, shocks the conscience. Of course, no, it doesn't. That's called being police.
Yeah.
That's what they are. That's what they do. Like, I love whenever these rare cases where the government actually proves that or actually comes after bad cops, they go, it's shocking. We were blown away. These cops are corrupt.
Well, I think that's sort of part of the whole corrupt system is that the rare times when they do like investigate it, they always make it seem like, this was just one rogue, department or a handful of bad apples that were just so out of line. We had to rein them in. So what that in fact is doing in the long term is creating a culture where just don't get caught. You know what I mean? Like that's really, it creates an atmosphere where it's like, you guys can beat people up and hide some evidence. Just don't be so overt about it. That's what these investigations in effect serve as we got it. It's like arresting the mid-level drug dealer rather than
the system.
The system.
They go, we cut out the cancer and all as well. Meanwhile, it's like the system is Skeletor.
Right. It's like
they're like, we got the lesion off of Skeletor.
Yeah. It's like R. Kelly gets 30 years, Ghislaine Maxwell gets 20, and None of her, nobody else that she's named, that no one else is named. It's literally like, I guess, and I put this on Twitter. I go, I guess Ghislaine Maxwell acted alone and trafficked all those children to an empty field, because that's what.
And she has no idea, who else was involved.
No clue, none. And we'll never know, I guess. That's just
turns out that long list of initials of who was getting on the Lolita Express jet. That was just the names of various drinks she wanted to have. Like,
right.
Yeah.
The literally 118 pages of FAA flight logs that got released last December during her trial. I don't know that that's that damning.
Like BC didn't stand for Bill Clinton. It stood for Budweiser and Corona. We want to make sure I have a lot of those on board.
Or the one where it literally said Bill Gates. Like, it wasn't even initials. They were written out. Bill Gates. Like,
that's his code name.
That's
turns out he's not good at coming up with code. He's good at coming up with code, but not code names. He's very good with code. He's terrible with code names. He's like, just tell them it's Bill Gates call. Oh, shit. Oh, God, no.
BG, would you like to use your code name of Bill Gates on this flight? Yes, on the QT for sure.
So so that report comes out in 79. The officers who arrested and later brutalized Abu Jamal come from the 6th district, the same place, which was under yet another federal investigation for police corruption by U.S. attorneys general in Philadelphia with the approval of the U.S. Department of Justice at the time. As a result, over 1/3 of the 35 officers involved in Mumia's case, including the top officer at the crime scene, Alonzo Giordano, were subsequently convicted of rank corruption, extortion, and tampering with evidence to obtain convictions. This is like he had of the 35 officers that were involved in this, he had like the all-star team of shitheads in charge of locking it. It was like a fantasy shithead team that was locking him up.
Meet your all-star shitheads on the Philadelphia Police Department.
And the people that had Alonzo Giordano on their fantasy team, man, they did well that week. They did so well.
I shouldn't have traded him away.
So then there's the fact of the covered up photographs. The photographs taken at the crime scene were taken by a freelance photographer in Philadelphia named Pedro Polikoff. Polikoff repeatedly called the police to give them the photographs, but the police never responded because, let's be honest, they didn't want people to see the real crime scene. They got the phone call. Like, oh, you've got photos of us fucking framing a guy? Oh, well, you know what? You keep those. You know what? We're good. We're good. We're just, why don't you hand those to me? We'll print them in the paper real quick. We'll get those printed up real quick. So Polikoff assumed that Mumia was guilty because that's what the newspapers were saying. And so he didn't worry about it. But in 2006, these photographs were discovered and studied. The photos disprove the prosecution's entire theory of the case. They also show that the police lied and tampered with evidence. Apparently, they show a cop putting his hands all over the gun, ruining any fingerprints, probably, just wiping off his KFC on the handle of the gun. Just I got some of that chicken grease. I just use this gun handle to clean it off. He's eating a Philly cheesesteaks just dripping all over the bullet.
Yeah, this was an episode of CSI, I remember, correct? I remember there was a KFC episode of CSI.
Yeah. When it helps lock in the fingerprints if you just put a little KFC grease on the handle there.
It's like when you see they put that powder on there and then they with the special like duster or whatever, the brush. Yeah. That's the same thing. You put a little KFC grease on there. That's why all the CSI techs always travel with KFC in their bag, in their tech bag.
So the Polikoff photos also point to the presence of Wait for it, a fourth person at the crime scene.
No, what? Weird. Is there any other story we've covered where there was maybe a second shooter, another person? And I'm trying to have we? I can't
Whew.
remember. Was there another? I feel like a bigger.
Was it a Gettysburg Address?
Was it? There was another guy at the Gettysburg. Was it that? Was it the Gettysburg? I can't remember. Anyway, it'll come to me. It'll come to me. But.
Yeah. The prosecution pegged the murder of Officer Daniel Faulkner on Mumia based on the perjured testimony of 3 witnesses who said after 60 days later, 60 days go by, and then these 3 witnesses say, oh yeah, they saw Mumia confess while he was in the hospital. You know, that's the kind of thing that hits you 2 months later. You're just like, oh yeah, you know what? Now that you say it, he totally yelled, I did it. I killed that cop as he was being taken into the hospital. Just remembered. Just remembered. However, the confession was contradicted by the testimony of Dr. Anthony Coletta, who was with Mumia from the moment he entered the hospital. Dr. Coletta said that Mumia was barely conscious and in a state of shock, and that the trauma produced by Mumia's bullet wound and the beating he had endured at the hands of police meant that medically Mumia was incapable of speaking. Well, I'm sure he could have, tapped out, I killed the cop in Morse code or something. He could have maybe spelled it out with IV fluid on the floor. You know how it is. You just spray a little IV fluid confessing that you killed the cop. Looks like we've lost Graham's feed. Either we lost Graham's feed and he's logging back on, or I've offended him, and he's finally learned too much about the American justice system, and he's had enough. So I think I walked Graham. Anyway, gonna keep going anyway. In a jaw-dropping illustration of judicial bias, Terry Carter, a court stenographer, testified in an affidavit that she heard Sabo, the judge. Hey, welcome back, buddy.
Hello. Sorry.
I thought maybe I walked you, but you're saying you're sticking around.
I was like, this is enough, Lee. Come on. The guy's guilty. I'm out of here. Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Can we move on, please?
So, Terry Carter, the court stenographer for the original trial, testified in an affidavit that she heard Sabo, the judge, referring to how he was going to instruct the jury. Because for those who don't know how this shit works, jury instruction is very important. What the judge tells the jury to actually think about. Because judges can heavily manipulate the jury. You know, they could tell a jury something like, if you think at all that this guy might have done it, then you got to say guilty, which of course is not true. Or they could say something like, if you have any reasonable doubt, then you have to say not guilty, which is true. So judges can heavily impact the jury. Anyway, so the court reporter heard Sabo, the judge, referring to how he was going to instruct the jury. And he said to another person in the anteroom of his court, I'm going to help them fry the man. Except he didn't say man. He said a word that starts with an N and rhymes with, bigger or trigger or something. Right. I'll let you try and figure it out on your own.
I'm sure it was like Nightcrawler or something like that, because I doubt there was any sort of racial motivation on the parts of the police towards a black man. I find that hard to believe.
No. Graham, I am upset you would even bring up such an idea.
It just doesn't make sense that a country that was built on genocide and slavery, that's had laws on the books to literally keep black people living less than, that also imported Nazis after World War II, that same country would have systemic racism within its police department. I find that hard to believe, quite honestly, and I resent the implication.
I didn't do well in math, so I don't know if that adds up. Really, remedial math was my peak. So
just going to blame it on public school system and be like, sorry, that I can't.
I don't know my multiplication tables. So what you just said about systemic racism, I can't sign off on that.
You're going to take the American. I'm totally misinformed, but I think I know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to say a information and data less stance based on some have truths that I watched on corporate media.
Yeah, let's go with that. Wait, did you just read that off my T-shirt, or did you come up with that on your own?
I saw. I think you have a necklace that says that has that written on it and little stones that I remember reading.
It's diamond studded. So Sabo had a history of this kind of shit, distinguished among his peers because he sent more people to their execution than any other judge in the country. And by the way, we have a very racist capital punishment system, which I've gone into before. Sabo earned the reputation of the hanging judge. And the overwhelming majority of Sabo's victims were, wait for it.
Hold on. Can I guess?
Yeah, so I'll let you guess, Graham.
Rich white women.
You were close. Mustachioed is the answer.
Oh God!
He hated a mustachioed woman.
Okay.
Hated him.
Women with mustaches just always got the hang, huh? Wow, that's brutal.
Yeah, he was brutal. But yeah, so he was number one hanging judge in the country and overwhelmingly black defendants. Mumia was tried, and get this. Maybe I'll let you guess on this one as well, Graham. Mumia was tried by an overwhelmingly what color jury?
Ooh, socialist, like free thinking, critical thinking socialists of wide varied backgrounds, because that's who encapsulates the working class.
The answer was mauve. An overwhelmingly mauve jury. I'm sorry, it had to be a color, Graham. It had to be a color.
Oh, so red. I would have said red. Socialism, red.
Yeah. Overwhelming socialist jury. So overwhelmingly white jury. I'm sure that shocks people.
Oh, so many curveballs in this story. I can't handle it, Lee. It's just there's so many twists and turns. I don't know what's going to happen next.
So now we get into one of your favorite agencies, Graham, the federal bra inspectors. Yeah. It is well documented in declassified FBI memos that the Philadelphia police, in consultation with COINTELPRO, which we have talked about many times, had for many years tried to peg a crime on the former Black Panther and radical radio journalist, Mumia Abu-Jamal. So they've been trying to get him for years. At the time of his arrest, Mumia's muck-raking radio journalism on police brutality and corruption in City Hall and his friendly reporting on the Radical Move organization made him a thorn in the side of the establishment and a target of the state. And as we mentioned later, after they arrest Mumia, they then bomb the Move house and murder multiple people, burning down an entire city block. One of the least known facts of the case remains that the investigation of Officer Faulkner's fatal shooting was conducted not by the police department's homicide unit, but rather by its civil defense unit, the local police arm of J. Edgar Hoover's COINTELPRO, which was vastly expanded in 1967 when Frank Rizzo became police commissioner of Philadelphia. And I always thought Frank Rizzo was a fake name that you used in prank phone calls, but this was also the unit that helped produce a 700-page surveillance record of Mumia. And this is my favorite part of the whole fucking story. In 1973, so what, 7-8 years before they arrest him for that murder? 8 years. In 1973, they attempted to pen the double murder of the governor of Bermuda and his aide on Mumia. So a black man assassinates the governor of Bermuda and his aide as they're walking one night. And the fucking Philadelphia police and COINTELPRO try and say it was Mumia, a radio journalist who hadn't been in the Black Panther since he was 16. who does not live in Bermuda.
So they literally tried to pull some Bermuda Triangle shit on this dude, like,
Yeah.
like
Yep. Yes, they did.
going back to 1973.
Yep. They already. This means they had already tried to get him for a murder and failed.
Wow. Man, it's like every week there's like every time we think the state, the FBI or the CIA, whatever, hasn't done enough crazy, like that's up there. That's got to be top 5, top 10
It's
crazy things.
basically, yeah. Yeah. It's
We
basically like an assassination happened and they were like, oh, who's fun to pin this on? Who do we want to take out?
Hey, let's blame this Black Panther guy, or he was in a Black Panther when he was 16. Let's blame him for that. Yes.
You know, it'd be like if the fucking governor of of Puerto Rico is killed, and they're like, Edward Snowden did it.
Yes, he did it from his from place in Moscow. That's where he did it. Wow, that's fascinatingly. That's a fantastic first segment of episode 89.
Yeah, that's basically it. He's still in prison. His death penalty has been commuted, but they're planning on keeping him there till he dies, and people continue to fight for him. You can find a lot more info on trying to free Mumia if you just Google it. So,
all right. Here we are, Government Secrets, episode 89, segment number 2. Hit the like button, ladies and gentlemen. Like, share, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this. And give us a positive review if it's on iTunes or Spotify or anything like that. And then join and support us at patreon.com/government secrets, where we do a exclusive live stream segment after each episode. So they're all, if you're just a new Patreon, you get all the past bonus segments that are only at Patreon. So I want to talk about something fun. Since we love journalists so much in this country, and especially when they expose real things, we're going to talk. And I've talked about this guy on my show, Political Vigilante. I'm sure, Lee, you've talked about him before. Gary Webb. And first, I'm going to give you this is just the Wikipedia version.
just says Spider-Man's uncle. That's it.
That's it. Spider-Man's uncle. Good night. He wrote for the Mercury News, which is a paper in San Jose, and he came up with this huge series called The Dark Alliance, which appeared in the Mercury News in 1996. And the series examined the origins of crack cocaine trade in Los Angeles and claimed that members of the anti-communist Contra rebels in Nicaragua had played a major role in creating the trade, using cocaine profits to finance their fight against the government of Nicaragua. It also stated that the Contras may have acted with the knowledge and protection of the CIA. The series provoked outrage, particularly in the Los Angeles African-American community, and led to 4 major investigations of its charges. The LA Times and other major papers published articles suggesting the Dark Alliance claims were overstated. This is where Wikipedia is just like, we don't know who's right. It's like, no, the CIA said you better get some counter narratives going. This is what happened.
Who's to say whether the CIA has done bad stuff? I mean,
yes,
it's overstated.
And we'll get into it in a second. So what happened then is they did the standard thing. They started putting, and there's a movie about this that starred Jeremy Renner that came out a couple years ago. It's a decent film. Jeremy Renner's a good actor. And they did the whole thing of, they put smear pieces in other stories. And then of course they tried to make him out. This is what they always do with a whistleblower. He's a loose cannon. He's a crackpot. He has a history of problems. They always do those.
They find standard stuff that like everybody's dealing with, like alcoholism, or he did some gambling 20 years ago, or he has an ex-wife who doesn't like him very much, and they go, oh, alcoholic womanizer, like like standard American shit you've been through because you've lived a life.
Anything, just like Have you ever gotten mad in traffic or something and lost your cool? Oh, anger, hothead, loose can't, like anything like that. You've ever like
A
bumped your,
DUI from 17 years ago. They're
yeah,
like, he enjoys running down children while drinking a Colt 45 behind the wheel. Like,
alcohol fueled murder car, just like, okay, he had too many drinks and he shouldn't have driven. And all right, like it's always the way they spin everything. So, the in November 1996, Jerome Seapost, the executive editor of Mercury News, wrote about being in the eye of the storm. In May 97, after an interview, Scipio stated that although the story was right on many important points, there were shortcomings in the writing, editing, and production of the series. So he wrote that the series likely oversimplified the crack epidemic in America and supposed a critical role of dealers. And the supposed critical role the dealers written about in the series played in it. Webb disagreed with the conclusion. He resigned from the Mercury News in 1997. He became an investigator for the California State Legislature, published a book based on the Dark Alliance series in 1998, and did freelance investigative reporting. And then this is my favorite part of the Wikipedia. He died by suicide on December 10th, 2004. That's the end of the Gary Webb thing.
and then it says in parentheses, unrelated.
Yeah.
He died by suicide, not related to the whole dark triangle thing.
No, he was such a loose cannon. He killed him. He's such a drunky, womanizing, crazy nut burger that he just, those nut jobs always. Well, so first of all, before we get into the actual suicide and what the coroner's report said, this is one of their tactics is with whistleblowers to isolate you, to make you feel like you don't have friends, to lose your job, so that you do feel desperate and alone and maybe depressed and maybe even think about taking your own life. So that is part of the tactic. So the fact that this suicide, they just brush it off as like, oh, he had a heart attack while he was sleeping. Like, no, first of all, what motivated a suicide?
Right. And you and I have talked about like people are often driven to OD as well,
Right.
like Lenny Bruce and perhaps Jim Morrison and Billie Holiday. It's like they were driven to severe substance abuse problems because they were being chased by the fucking government.
Yeah. They were like in Lenny Bruce's case, he couldn't work. I mean, like they did all that stuff. So the smearing tactics of the whistleblower cannot be minimized if this was in fact an actual suicide. But let's just, before we get into all the CIA connections, there's an article in The Intercept I'm going to go over that came out in 2014 before The Intercept went corporate neoliberal or whatever happened over there, back when The Intercept was still The Intercept. The official coroner's report, Lee, of Gary Webb's suicide, shot himself in the head twice. Which that shouldn't raise any red flags at all, because we all know when you
and the gun was found 2 apartments away.
Yes, the gun walked away and it had somebody else's handprints on it, but we know it was a suicide. So he supposedly shot himself in the head twice. Which,
well, I mean, Graham, that just speaks to somebody who really wants to get the job done. I mean, there are those who want to take their life and they want to do it right. So you got to double tap, Graham. You got to double tap.
So he shot himself in the back of the head twice. So he did that.
Yep.
The first one, boom, immediately snaps forward. And then as that's happening, his body still twitches and he gets another round off. Okay,
maybe he'd been training in the off season. You're too cynical, Graham.
I'm way too cynical. Like, and even if you could bring in 1,000 gun experts or medical people who say the body could nervously twitch, this has happened in the past, and show me examples, it doesn't excuse the things we were just talking about, how they drove him to suicide. But two shoots in the back of the head, you know what that tells me? That's a threat. That's mob style. Like, oh, you're an investigative journalist? Would be a real shame if you happened what that Webb guy shot himself in the back of the head twice, suicide style. You know what I mean? You publish that story like that,
Yeah.
guys might fall down a flight of stairs, Lee. That's weird. You know what I'm saying? Like,
At the very least, that's we are making sure you're not getting up.
yeah. And it's a message. It is a message. You want to do investigative journalism? If you see a sniff of the CIA, you better back away. And that's what local media now does, is they find, the mid-level city council member that got an envelope for, from a construction company. They're going to find that kind of corruption. You know what I mean? The barbecue joint that's paying off the health inspector. That's the kind of stuff.
Right. Or my favorite local news one is we went to the grocery store, and even though the tabs on the products in the aisles said 2 for $1, on a couple of them, they charged us full price. We were overcharged by 39 cents out of our $200 at the grocery store. More news at 11.
Gotcha. Take that, criminals.
And they always have a name like, we're the Gotcha Gang. Oh, and today's Gotcha Gang goes after those used car inflatable guys who go up and down, but they're not really that excited.
They don't actually help sales. Gotcha. Oh.
Ion fraud.
Yeah, exactly. Expose. It's always that, like, something.
Chattanooga's Gotcha Gang.
The Eyewitness Crime Watch.
Yeah, but it's never like the CIA. The Chattanooga Gotcha, the Cincinnati Gotcha Gang is not like the CIA killed Kennedy.
The Chattanooga Gotcha Gang. The Chattanooga Gotcha Gang is not like there's a global billionaire fueled sex trafficking ring of pedophiles. They're not going to say that. The Gotcha Gang is going to do that one.
Today on New Paltz, New York's Fraud Squad. How the FBI creates the terrorists that they then arrest.
Watch out, Omaha Crime Stoppers. We're going to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell's ties to Mossad.
We found Mossad hanging out at the local cafe.
These Mossad agents were hanging out with contractors that didn't have their licenses. So, oh man, we're going to really get that.
By the way, Crab, I know we're at close to an hour. We can make this a 2-part series in order to continue this bit. I am definitely warranting that.
Well, I think this needs to come up we need to do a Gotcha Gang riff in the middle of any episode henceforth. That's amazing.
So, Des Moines Fraud Squad catches Bill Clinton for having Seth Rich assassinated. Channel 6 eye on presidential assassinations.
Oh my God. The Georgia Gotcha Gang is going to uncover all of the CIA coups of democratically elected leaders. Oh God. All right. Well, let me wrap this story up here. I know we're at an hour, but we
can make it a 2-part. We can make it a cliffhanger.
Ooh. Yeah. All right. We'll go into the cliffhanger part because there's a whole,
because I feel like there's more to be said also about or maybe that's what you're getting into, what he exposed about the CIA.
Well, there's 2 things to get into in the second part. What he exposed specifically and how the Freedom of Information Act document that came out that show in 2014 that was released that showed the CIA public affairs was like, we got to get out ahead of this, us being caught, funneling drugs into the inner cities. So there's a whole Freedom of Information Act doc to go through.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Intercept article from 2014. So Yeah, we can make that. We can make this a two-parter. We'll do a Gary Webb part 2 next week.
Sounds good to me. Is there anything else you want to go through now, or you want to just save it?
Well, if we're up on an hour and we want to do a second part, then I'll just save it, because really, I wanted to talk about the WikiLeaks and the suicide first, and how they. But we'll get into the specifics of what he actually uncovered and the hard evidence that he did. And there's also numerous other reports and documentaries showing this. This wasn't just him. And there's another guy, not Rupert, but Robert Murdoch, I believe, who did the. There's another guy, another ex-CIA agent that called this out. There's several CIA whistleblowers that have spoken up on this. So we'll get into that in the second part, because it's extensive. There's the Intercept article is pretty extensive. It's really about the freshly released CIA document show how the largest U.S. newspapers helped the agency contain a groundbreaking expose. Like,
mainstream media helping out CIA.
Isn't it great? That's basically what they did. That's when his dark, series came out, everyone was like, holy shit. And then all of the people all of the counter narratives started coming after him. And it was like, rather than the corporate media doing its job of like, oh, we're going to get ahead of this story. We're going to all come at this. And so everybody starts exposing it, and you can draw again, to a massive conspiracy. Let's look at Epstein. Like, the Miami Herald is the only one really talking about this. Nobody is talking about Epstein and Maxwell. Jean-Luc Brunel hung himself like back in February or March. He was in prison for being a sex trafficking pedophile with ties. He was friends with Epstein. He hung himself. No stories on that. Like, you see how they just put a clamp down on a story and change the narrative.
Fox News is 90% garbage, but weren't they on the Epstein story for a while?
Initially, because they were showing the connections to Trump, or excuse me, to the Clintons. The Bill was on 26 times. Hillary was on twice. They were at his compound in New Mexico numerous times. But this is what the corporate media would do. And this is why they would, MSNBC and CNN would focus on Trump's connections and just kind of gloss over Clinton's connections. And Fox would go after the Clinton connections, but kind of gloss over the Trump connections. And
they do the reverse.
Yeah, you do the reverse. You really want to see how, and after Epstein hung himself with a paper t-shirt 3 summers ago, why they've clamped down is in December of 19, December of 21, last year, when they were in the middle of the Maxwell trial. 118 pages of flight logs got released. And prior to that, there was only one flight that Trump was on. After last December, there was 4 more flights showing that Trump was on 5 flights. And you'd have thought that MSNBC and CNN would have gone nuts with that and ran all over that. They didn't talk about it at all.
Because they knew that then they'd have to mention Clinton.
Yes. Yeah. And everyone else. And Alan Dershowitz and Les Wexner and everybody else.
And also, Trump was I covered it this is way before Epstein was arrested and everything. Trump initially had an accuser who said she was like 13 or 14 and raped at an Epstein party by Trump. And then she suddenly got quiet and stopped. The charges disappeared.
Yes. So there's that. There's the fact that numerous women were trafficked out of Mar-a-Lago. There's the fact that Acosta in 2009, when he was then I think Attorney General of the state of Miami, or he was either district attorney or AG in Florida, whatever he was. When he prosecuted Epstein in 2009, he literally, this is a quote from him, he was told to back off Epstein because he was a CIA asset. He was told that. And then,
yeah, and then he became whatever, secretary of whatever under Trump.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's numerous ties to Trump, but then again, yeah, if you go after that, then you have to expose all of it. And that's why they're like they're barely talking about it. And now that Ghislaine Maxwell's been sentenced to 20 years, they're doing that same thing that they were trying to do in your story of just like, we got him. It's bad. We got the one bad guy. We got the one bad police department in Philly. We got it. It's over. It's just this little isolated incident.
And like when Epstein became a national story, and so the mainstream media had to cover it, it looked like they were covering it to your average American. They were like, oh, they're covering this story. They're revealing that this sex trafficker, was friends with Clintons, things like that. But really what they were doing is they were trying to manage the story. It's what's called a limited hangout. You reveal enough of the truth that people think they've got the story, and then you move things along. And by revealing a little bit of the truth, you can then act like there's nothing else we're not covering.
Yeah, we covered it. And I think it's the same with Maxwell's trial, because it's like none of this stuff came out. There was only 4 witnesses that spoke, or 4 victims rather, that spoke at the Maxwell trial. In the Nasser trial, that gymnast,
right,
pedophile, like 90 some women, they had 90 victims testify. They only had 4 testify at the trial, and nobody else is coming out. That's why the Maxwell trial is very much like, well, we got her. That's done. There's no mention of anybody else. It's so sealing off the whole thing. Even the did Epstein kill himself was deliberately sort of a distraction. Everyone's debating, did he kill himself? No one's asking who's in the black book, where all the stuff that was seized from his penthouse.
And as we talked about before, they filled 3 FBI trucks with everything taken from his mansion and then drove it into the East River.
Just fucking just put a brick on the gas pedal and the guy dove out right before it hit. That's what happened.
Just drove straight off the island. Gone forever.
It's gone forever. It was unfortunate. He drove into a gasoline tank. The trunk set on fire. Everything burned in it, and then it fell into the river. It was the craziest set of circumstances anyone's ever seen.
Yeah.
So that's episode 89, Government Secrets.
There's a little bonus Epstein material.
Oh, a little bonus Epstein rant. You got a little Batman rant at the beginning. We cover a lot of topics here, buddy.
Yeah, we did. And we're going to keep going, because for those of you joining us right now, you'll notice we have no ads. Nobody's willing to sponsor the most censored comedians in the country. So the only way we keep this going is by you guys becoming members at patreon.com/government secrets. And we go there every week and we do an extra segment. So head on over there and join us for this upcoming segment right now.
Yes. And I've got some tour dates the end of July with Ron Placone in the Pacific Northwest. So go to grahamelwood.com for that.
And Graham and I are working on a tour of at least a few dates in Europe, and the London date is definitely happening.
Yes, we got London, and there's a couple other cities we're working on in October, late September. We're putting it all together. So that's starting to take shape. And when we have hard dates with ticket links, we will let you all know. We will put them on both of our websites.
All right. See you in a minute.
See you over Patreon. Later. Government Secrets, episode 89. That's it.